Next are cone extensions. These are one of the best ways to transition into a different sequence and establish some distance between you and your opponent while elevating. Start with a triple edit up, then jump out of the edit, place a wall and 2 ramps outward with a cone and another wall on top. Edit through and repeat. Now, onto protected crossovers. This style of crossover is incredibly useful for blocking off your opponent. Just cranking out 1 or 2 of these can set up really good piece control and help you win the fight. Start with a ramp below you and a wall to your side. Extend 2 more ramps connected to the wall, jump, place a wall on the farthest ramp, land on another ramp, and extend 2 more ramps. Then to keep elevating, jump, place a floor, and a ramp out in front of you. Next are protected cone extensions. These look a bit flashy, but they're definitely worth learning. Each one establishes piece control and gives you a lot of options in terms of what play to make. These all start off like the classic cone extension. The difference is you swing cones and high walls around you. These are the hardest moves to learn in this video, so take your time and get it down slowly first. Now, onto some simple quad edits. These are super easy and set you up for very nice piece control opportunities. They elevate you and also bring you closer to your opponent. Super straightforward. Keep moving in the same direction and keep your crosshair placement tight. Nothing too crazy. Finally, our elevated side jumps. These are super straightforward. Edit your cone, strafe, and jump out of the box. Swing walls around yourself and place floors and cones for you to land on. That's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Meet a digital bank account built for businesses like yours. With American Express Business.
What's going on? Today, I'm going to be going over 100 tips for beginners to pro level players that I wish I knew earlier. Whether you're a complete beginner or a pro, I'm sure there's something in here you haven't heard that will help you. Without further ado, let's get straight into the tips. Pickaxing a wood wall twice will always break it. You don't need to hit the circle. Wood walls have 90 HP to start with, but cap out at 150. Brick walls have 99 to start, but cap out at 300. Metal walls start with 110 and cap out at 500. If you look straight down, you can place walls right in front of you, but if you look straight ahead, they'll place 1 tile away. Cone will always place above your head as long as you're looking above halfway up the build tile. You can tarp with ramps by placing on the top of floors, but also you can do that by placing them on the bottoms of floors. You can now tack sprint while editing. You can reset a build early if you're standing within the threshold where it will push you out. If you build a ramp over your head and jump into it, you'll run slightly faster. If someone edits and resets their wall, it will leave it low health and can be taken in 1 pickaxe swing. If you're on high elevation, you can jump and rotate ramps to slide extremely fast. If you slide while you heal, you aren't slowed down as much as when you're just walking. While you're sliding, you can also farm materials. If you jump and slide right before your tack sprint runs out, you'll be going faster than if you just run until your tack sprint comes back. If you're tack sprinting while you jump, you go higher than if you jump normally. They changed tack sprinting, so if you jump while tack sprinting, you can change direction in the air. Here's every way to X1 into a box. Pickaxe through the wall with momentum. Shoot through the wall with momentum. Jump with a ramp above your head. Jump from the top with a pickaxe. Jump from the top with a gun. Phase the stair, and then pickaxe or shoot through. Run into the bottom of stair or cone from the top. You can walk through the wall if you edit a door like this, and then walk between the door and the wall. You can also make the wall yellow and shoot through it. You can pickaxe through bottoms while holding forward, or you can stand on top of a door with a ramp above your head. Not all breakable objects are equal, they give vastly different amounts of material per swing. If you struggle with hitting the blue spots to do double damage, stand right next to where your pickaxe swinging and you don't have to move your crosshair almost at all and you'll hit every single blue circle. The trees with thicker trunks give more wood. More angular bricks give much more brick than the circular ones. Metal is the most scarce material on the map. The easiest way to get a lot is by claiming a combat cache or the crate on the train. If you're getting sprayed or fought, switch to hard mats as they have more HP. Use your wood if you aren't getting full sprayed at to block sightlines. If you're on the edge of a mountain, you can build 2 walls for the cost of 1. The more tiles of something you edit, the less HP it has. If you tack sprint through a door you edited, it launches anyone near the door away. When making a peanut butter edit, make sure you have a floor above your head or your jump will be too high. Edit a top 3 tile while standing against a wall with a ramp above your head to have a much better peek. You can make a wide edit if you're behind the cone and you'll get the first shot. If you make a 3 tile edit while someone is standing in the middle of the floor like this, you can shoot them without them seeing you at all. When being pushed, creating 2 boxes is a way to make space while setting up angles to punish over-aggression. If you hold your blueprints out, you're able to edit from further away. On keyboard, there's scroll wheel reset to instantly reset, and on controller, you can use the new setting, reset on release, to have 2 button resets. Carry big pots and medkits in solo tournaments so you can always heal to 200 HP. Learn to farm efficient materials instantly off spawn for a quick material advantage over your opponent. If you find yourself at a health disadvantage, create as much space in hard mats as possible to get max heals off. Rotate on high elevation in mid games to get easier beams on opponents, better awareness on your surroundings, and easier to scout rotates. Crouch and ADS to sneak up on opponents without them hearing you. If you notice your opponent popping a big pot or a medkit, you can cancel it before they get the full amount of heals to leave them stuck on heals. You can use the launch pads on top of the mountains in the snow biome to rotate quickly, or just on unsuspecting opponents. Footsteps sound different on different structures. This is what it sounds like on wood, this is what it sounds like on brick, and this is what it sounds like on metal. Use this to gain additional information on your opponent's whereabouts. Snipers with the scope create a glare that makes it easier for your opponents to spot you. Take the scope off your sniper to trick people into peeking you thinking you have an AR out. Having no scope on your sniper means you can ADS on people from a bush without the glare revealing your location. If you get beamed in mid-game, create a 1x1 and hide behind it instead of inside it to get your opposing player off guard. Hide in the floor and cone in solos if you're in a protected area to conserve mats. Use the rifts under the loot island for easy rotates. Use EMP grenades to get gold from vending machines. With that gold, you can buy big pots and medkits from vending machines. When camping in mid-game, use natural cover like bushes or houses to avoid drawing attention to yourself. Free edits and team game modes can help you get easy eliminations. Turn on visual audio to gain extra information about your opponents and see audio cues that you can't actually hear. Grapple on the edge of objects to maintain your momentum. Use shockwaves in combination with flow barriers to go extra far. Slide after you grapple to maintain momentum. You can also do this with shockwaves. If you don't have a rotate ramp spine, you can slide while looking backwards and placing ramps. Gliding allows you to maintain momentum while shooting and reloading. You can spin in the air while gliding to evade shots. You can slide after gliding to maintain momentum. You can pop a flow barrier right before hitting a pad to go extra high. You can take fall after grind railing on lights inside POIs. You can use the grapple to cancel fall damage. You can jump into cars to cancel fall damage as well. You can fake pickaxe walls to retake them if they try to pre-fire. You can edit and reset to bait out their shot before going for your own. You can make a top 6 row edit from a box away behind a peanut butter. You can use the gold found inside the vault to add and remove attachments to your guns. The best way to get the bot is either by third-partying the person who tries to get it, or by making a bunch of boxes so you can't get jumped in on while killing it. Don't use the Grey Burst SMG because it doesn't have enough structure damage to break a wood wall in 2 bursts. The setting auto open doors on in case you accidentally edit a door is extremely useful while building. Performance mode on and graphics to low to have less input delay and more FPS. If you're on console, you can turn motion blur off and replace off to have better FPS. Hold to swap pickup makes inventory easier to access. Having subtitles on gives you delay. Having too many people on your friends list causes input delay. Having mantle activation on jump instead of hold forward is less likely to cause accidental mantles. Preferred item slots allows you to configure your inventory to your preference without having to sort it. While having a small HUD is more aesthetically pleasing, having a big one allows you to see the map easier and see your health out of your peripheral vision. You can turn your slide hold down in controller settings to slide easier on both controller and on keyboard and mouse. Turning on anonymous mode makes it so that teams can't see when you trade knocks and are rezzing. Having your view distance high allows you to see the textures on items from further away. You can use boost in the faster cars, but it goes through your fuel much faster. You can use aim duels to practice your aim. You can use Raider's mechanics training map to train your mechanics and beast control. Make sure you warm up before you play anything important so you can perform to the best of your ability. You can build on a slowed down movement speed to help build consistency before you move on to normal speed. A little bonus tip for building on slow speed is to focus on your crosshair placement. Once you can have extremely concise crosshair placement while building in slow speed, you can turn the speed back up to normal and still have extremely good crosshair placement. I know usually my motto is no long outros, but I just wanted to tell anyone that made it to the end of the video, I truly appreciate you. The support I've been getting on the videos recently is insane, and I couldn't be more grateful for every single one of you. If there's anything you want to see me cover in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you've made it this far, dropping a like and sub would go a really long way. Sorry for the long outro this time, but I'll see you next time.
Back in Chapter 1, whenever a wall was broken, the person who got ownership of the replaced wall was mostly just whoever had the lowest ping. To combat this, Fortnite implemented what is today known as the coin flip mechanic. This made it so that whenever a build is broken, nothing can be placed in that spot for 150 milliseconds. After the time is up, it completely randomly gives the wall to one person who tried to place one during the waiting period. This way, players on higher ping have an equal chance to hold walls against lower ping players. However, this also means there are 150 milliseconds where you can shoot anyone that tries to replace your build, known as a pre-fire. So hitting pre-fires isn't inconsistent. It's not random chance whether it goes through. It isn't even caused by ping or lag. It's all timing. This is also the same mechanic that causes bullets from high fire rate weapons to also bleed through turbo building. The amount of time you have is actually 150 minus your ping, but it's completely independent of your opponent's ping. So unless you have over 150 ping, you will always be able to pre-fire the opponent even if they are on 0 ping. So in order to help you all perfect the timing, I made a map that lets you practice hundreds of reps in minutes. Doing it repeatedly over and over really makes it easy to learn the timing rather than occasionally in fights. There are multiple scenarios, so you can practice when they're breaking your tops, walls, below you, and even diagonal angles. By default, all the scenarios are selected, but you can shoot any ones you don't want to do to disable it. Once you start, it randomly teleports you between your preferred scenarios, so you have to identify where the threat's coming from, then turn and pre-fire. Sometimes if you don't time it right, you'll blank them just like in real games. It'll look like you hit, but it doesn't actually deal any damage. So the map plays a little sound, that way you know whether the shot actually did damage or not. And yes, real games can be a bit more laggy than creative, so if you want to make it harder, you can always queue after switching to another region that you get higher ping on. To mix it up, some have guards that try to pickaxe in, and others have sentries using an SMG to try to break through. At any time, you can activate the signal remote to reset the map and pick different scenarios or change settings. The map has already been out for almost a week because I actually released this map early on Discord. I'll probably do that in the future as well, since it helps me make sure I get all the bugs ironed out before the full release. So I hope you enjoy the map. If you want to support me, you can use my supportive creator code in the item shop, you can become a member here on YouTube, or you can support for free just by playing.
With AT&T Business, we can live chat with customers from wherever.
Okay, great. I'm leaving right now. Yeah, see you soon.
Today I'm going to show you guys how to approach a box in Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 1. So it's fairly easy for players to learn, but I see a lot of mistakes that have been made, like probably it's happening a lot in game, and I'm seeing that as well. So I'm trying to learn you guys how to not like make mistakes while approaching a box. So for example, this is a box from someone. The first thing, I'm just going to show you what not to do, because there's a lot of things that can happen when you make blunders. So basically what you don't want to do is stand directly in front of the wall and just start double pickaxing. I see a lot of players do that in ranked, and it's like one of the worst things you can do. So basically from my perspective, if somebody is standing right there in the middle, all I need to do is literally place, make a right hand peek, and then I can place a cone here, and I can literally make double walls. Like, and now I need to jump, but normally when you do it fast, so basically it looks like this, and there's a cone there. When you do it fast, it like you can just instantly do it, see, without even showing your body or your face. So he's standing right there, and he can't do anything anymore. You literally got him full beast. If he walks out there, you can literally just piece him again. So that's what not to do. And what you need to do is when there's a box right here, for example, you the first thing you're gonna do is place a cone right in front of the wall, where you're pickaxing, where you're gonna pickaxe it, and you place one directly on the side of it. I prefer the left side, but you can use this side, but it's like rarely fucked because, yeah, I mean, I just don't like it. It's your you can prefer it, but I don't really like it. So what you need to do now is basically, once you're going here, the setup, you've already made this. So you place a wall on the side over here. So this wall, you cannot be attacked from like the side wall. And what you then need to do is place another wall. And what I always like to do is make like a box in the, like where the wall is directly in front of. Because sometimes there are people that just go wide at it. I don't know why, but sometimes I'm just pickaxing the wall and they just run like this and they wide at it. And they're already now in my box. So basically when they do that, they're always fucked because I just re-added and then I got them in my box. I can just do the right thing. I can just do the exact same thing that he tried on me. So basically don't do that. But what you need to do then is you gotta pickaxe the wall. And why you need to stand like this, like don't stand like this when you're pickaxing the wall, but try to go through the side. So basically why I'm telling you to do that is because this guy can't see you for some reason. It's just the right hand peak. They can't see you from like, so basically when somebody's standing there, they can't see me, but I can see them. So I can hit them, but they can't. So every time what happens is when somebody edits open, so for example, I'm pickaxing the wall and he edits open, you walk to the side and you shoot. They can't see you, you can. So I'm gonna show you some examples in a minute, and then you'll see like how good it works and shit. So I'm gonna show you guys an example right now, and yeah, just learn. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you would like me to make more of these kind of videos, then follow me and comment.
Are you really the last person to find out about this skip ads forever button? This is Pi, and if it sounds familiar to you, it's probably...
You already know that you need to be VOD reviewing your tournaments, but you still don't because when you do it, it's boring and it takes forever. But it doesn't have to. If you actually learn how to use the replay mode, you can easily see the important parts of the match and quickly skim through to learn from the important parts and move on to the next. Learning a few hotkeys and settings will save you a ton of time, like the action feed that shows you every single death that happens in the match. Just putting it on 4x or skipping the in-game isn't gonna cut it. So here's everything you need to know about replays. First, when choosing a file to review, there are two different kinds of replays, a personal replay and the public replay. Personal replays are what's saved in your replay tab. These kinds of replays have more limited information than public replays. Personal replays don't have any information about things that are too far from you, and they oftentimes are missing other information like what's in your inventory, etc. So always use a public replay file when available. Public replays are always available for tournaments by either finding your name in the tournament itself within Fortnite, or by using a third-party site like Fortnite Tracker. To get it within Fortnite, go to the Compete tab, find the tournament, then go to the session leaderboard and find your name. Then hit match history and watch on the game you want to see. To get it from Fortnite Tracker, go to events, find the tournament, and find your name. Then right click on the icon next to the game you want to watch and click copy link address. Then in Fortnite, you go to career, replays, and view streaming replay. This is where you paste in the link address. But before you hit accept, you have to delete everything up until the slash, that way it's just the replay code. Once you're in the replay, you'll probably start off looking at someone who isn't you. The quickest way to find yourself is to open the map with either M or your normal map button, and then sorting the list of names alphabetically. You can sort players by team number, name, or technically by number of points, but a lot of the times the points are bugged, so it doesn't really work. If you do actually want to see who's in the lead, the best way is to press F8 to open the scoreboard. This one's automatically sorted by each team's total eliminations. So now that you're diving in, it's a good time to look at the 6 different viewing modes. It starts in third person, but there's also gameplay, drone free, drone attach, drone follow, and battle map. You can cycle through them with C or R3, or go straight to the one you want by pressing the numbers 1 through 6 on the keyboard. Third person is locked onto your character, but allows you to click and drag or use the right stick to change the angle you're watching from. Drone free is just a free camera that you can move however you want. For some reason, unlike everything else in replay mode, it actually does use the keybinds from your settings to go forward, backwards, left, and right. Most things like moving the camera up and down is usually permanently locked to the default of Q and E. But anyway, you can change the drone speed with minus and plus, and you can zoom in and out by either scrolling or pressing Z and X. Drone free is really useful, but sometimes you'll find that when you initially switch to it, the camera is way outside of zone. So remember, you can always reset the camera back to the player by pressing R. Drone attach mode is the same as drone free, except when the player moves, the camera also moves to follow them. And drone follow mode is also just drone free, except when the player moves, the camera turns to follow them. Now battle map is completely different. It shows you the entire movement path of the player throughout the entire game, from the moment they jump off the bus till the very end of the game. And it shows every single zone circle, so it's perfect for quickly seeing a player's loot route or rotations in general. It's also perfect for skipping straight to your off spawn fight. You can right click any of the spheres to skip straight to that part of the match. So instead of trying to click and guess on the slider, use battle map to snap straight to when you hit the ground. If you want to swap to any of your teammates' perspectives instead, you can use I and O or K and L to cycle through, or just click on their names. After your spawn fight, easiest way to skip to important parts is by using the action feed. Rather than cycling through all your teammates to try and see who gets the next elim, you can press Y to see all knocks and eliminations that happen throughout the entire game. Then when you click the elim you want to see, it'll go straight to a few seconds before it happens so you can see how it happened. You can technically also go to any specific time by pressing T, but for some reason it makes you put it in seconds. So you can't put in 12:24, you would instead have to know that it's 744 seconds in. But enough with the keybinds. Let's look at actual camera settings, since that's what will determine how easy it is to see what's going on, both in fights and especially in endgames. The first tab is simple, just leave auto exposure on, otherwise it'll get too dark or too bright to see sometimes. And ignore focal length, it's the same as zooming in and out. Now on the second tab, the important ones are player outlines and share lens settings. Player outlines lets you see everyone through walls. Usually you'll want this on, especially if you're using drone free, but sometimes you may want to turn it off so that you can only see what you could actually see in game. Share lens settings changes whether or not swapping players will reset the camera. So like when you're looking around in drone free and in in-game and want to see what someone else had in their inventory, you would click on them. But it's annoying because the camera then snaps to them and you have to move it back. Turning this on makes it so that the camera doesn't do that, so you can look around and swap to whoever you want without the camera resetting. Turning this on makes watching in-games so much better. And if you ever do need the camera to snap to the person you click on, you can always just press R anyway. Storm effects, high quality effects, and damage effects you just want off. Replay mode loads slow enough already, we don't need more bloat. First place outline is supposed to show who has the most points, but we all know points are bugged more often than not, so it usually won't work anyway, so turn this off. Safe zone opacity may seem to not do anything to the zone, but that's because it only changes how it looks when the camera is outside of the zone looking into the zone. I recommend somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3. Opaque enough that you can tell where the zone is, but not too thick that you can't see what's happening inside of the zone. Session ID watermark just turns on and off the text in the bottom right. It doesn't really matter if it's on or off. And lastly, if you're in third person mode, you'll also notice these two extra settings in this tab, auto follow and distance the subject. Normally in third person when the player turns, nothing happens. But with auto follow, it will try and make sure the camera stays behind the player, either aggressively with auto or more slowly with lazy mode. And distance the subject is, as it sounds, how far the camera is from the player. The third tab though, changes entirely based on the viewing mode you're in. It's not available at all in third person mode. It's only available for drone free, drone attach, and drone follow. The only important thing in this tab though, is drone direct movement. If you're like me, you get annoyed every time the camera resets and you have to max out the drone speed again because it's so slow. Well, now you can increase the default speed. Drone direct movement changes the camera movement from gradual to linear. You could leave this off so it's more smooth, but turning it on allows you to change velocities. The linear velocity is what changes the base drone speed. You can still speed it up and slow it down like before, but this value is the base that it's changing from. So if you set it really low, even if you set drone speed to 4x, it'll be really slow. But if you set it high, then even 0.25 will be fast. I'd recommend at least 3.0 because anything lower and players can just outrun the camera while you're trying to follow them. Rotation velocity is the same thing but for turning. Low makes it turn slow and high makes it turn super fast. I just leave mine on the default. All this Dutch angle stuff you can ignore, it just tilts the camera, and unless you're trying to make some cinematic or something, I don't know why you'd want to do that. But make sure Dutch control scheme is off. If it is on, then your minus and plus will instead tilt the camera instead of changing drone speed. The fourth tab is also just for cinematic stuff. Change time of day and the lighting. If you are doing cinematic stuff, you should also know that you can toggle on and off player count, team info, and the elimination feed with F2, F3, and F6 respectively. Finally, the fifth tab is arguably the most important, but there's also a lot of it, so let's start from the top. Nameplates, on. It's what lets you see players' names and health. Team color, also on. It just makes it much easier to tell who's on whose team. Now the low detail, arrow, and off distances all work together. There are 4 different UI options. high detail, low detail, arrow, and none. By default, everything will be on high detail. This gives the most information, but in-game it's just so cluttered that you can't see anything. The low detail slider sets the distance where players' info will turn to low detail mode instead. Low detail mode still shows the name, but it doesn't show players' health. Then the arrow slider sets where low detail mode turns into the arrow, and off distance is where the UI for that player turns off entirely. I personally don't like the low detail mode at all because if I'm close enough that I want to see their name, I also want to see their health. So I turn low detail to the max to make it never show. Then I turn arrow distance down to where I want the names to disappear. Another useful option is when you just have arrows to see where everyone is. To do that, turn arrow distance to the minimum and the other two to the max. Make sure to turn on arrow team color though so that you can see who's together or who's solo. Adjust scaling changes how much or how little the UI's size changes as you get closer or further away from them. I feel like the UI is too big by default, so I lower all the maximums to 0.8, but it's all preference. You can honestly just leave adjust scaling off if you don't want to deal with it. These are the settings I like though. For the last options, squad ID just shows the number of the team the players belong to. But if you have on team colors, it's really easy to tell who's on whose team. Occasionally there will be two teams next to each other that have the same color, so I still leave it on hold. That way if you need, you can hold Alt to see their numbers for a second. Display session ranks is supposed to show what place each team is in based on their points, but again, the points are always bugged, so just leave it off. And display augment HUD I assume is supposed to show augments, but augments haven't been in the game for a while, so I can't really test it. I'll put an update in the description if they ever add augments back, but for now this setting doesn't do anything. Now there are a few quirks, let's call them, to be aware of. The first is that most of the hotkeys and binds are not remappable, so unless you have default keybinds, you might have some hotkeys not work for you unless you either unbind something or plug in a controller to use. So for example, you move the camera up and down with Q and E, but E is normally my map button, so I would have to unbind my map just to be able to move the camera up. That's why I recommend plugging a controller and keyboard if you have them when viewing replays. Doing just the controller isn't ideal because there are some functions that you can't click on, you have to press a hotkey to use, like Y for the action feed. But the second quirk is that skins sometimes don't load. So if after skipping through everyone becomes default skins, you just kind of deal with it. Sometimes it'll eventually fix itself, but it can take a while. It's best to just ignore it. Next, sometimes the number of charges left in an item will be incorrect. It most often happens with items like grapplers, void masks, and stuff like that. Lastly, there are a lot of performance bugs. Sometimes it'll just freeze for a second and then catch up later. There's literally nothing you can do about it. And sometimes the entire client will just crash when trying to scrub through the timeline. I have found that it crashes less often when I use the time skip to scrub through instead of clicking on the bar, but even with that it still crashes sometimes. You just kind of have to work with it. Now I just covered literally all of the options for replay mode, but really you only want to remember the parts that you're going to use, because all of the camera settings will save between replay files so that you can review all of your games without having to set a bunch of stuff every time. But once you restart your client, the settings reset. You unfortunately can't keep them forever. Regardless of if you're just starting out or are a tier 1 pro, this video will teach you things about Fortnite that I can guarantee you didn't know. Like the fact that you can build further in front of you by looking to the left instead of straight, or how cones and stairs, even when edited into the exact same shape, still behave completely differently. But in order to understand why these things happen, you must have a deeper understanding of how the building grid works. Even though there are 4 building pieces, there are only 3 slots where builds can be placed. Floors along one axis, walls along the other 2 axes, and either a cone or stair can go between the axes. But every time you build, Fortnite actually has to do a lot of guesswork to try and figure out where you want to place your build and in which orientation. The orientation is actually super simple. It completely ignores your position, where you're trying to build at, whether there are other builds in the way, and everything else. The only thing that determines the orientation of your builds is the compass. It's quite simply, if you're looking north, it will place facing north. But as soon as you cross the 45 degrees, it places facing east. Same thing at 135, 225, and 315. And the compass isn't visible in creative, but it's working the same way regardless. You can actually use the backbling in the battle pass though to see it when it's hidden. Now when it comes to which tile your builds are placed at, that's where it gets complicated. There's something called a raycast coming out of your camera at all times. It's basically a line in the direction you're looking, but it stops at a set distance. This raycast is the biggest part of how it decides where your build is placed. First, whichever build slot is closest to the endpoint of the raycast is where the build will place. Seems simple enough, but because Fortnite is third person and the camera is to the right of your character, the geometry works out that looking to the left allows you to build further away than looking straight forward. No one ever talks about this concept, even though they may utilize it in some ways all the time. If you notice people tarping, they always place the left wall before the right one. It's because you can place the left wall from further away than you can a right wall. But if you ask players why they do this, very few players can actually tell you. They'll say it just feels better. Which isn't wrong, but knowing why this happens allows you to use it in other scenarios as well. like in mini build fights where you and an opponent are racing to get control of this build piece. If instead of looking forward you look more left, you can get the piece control from further away and before the opponent does. Or if you want to be able to pre-box either side of an opponent's box, you shouldn't stand right in the center. You should stand to the right side. You can build much further to the left, so if you stand in the middle, you won't be able to reach the right side from where you're standing. The next thing to know is if the raycast is colliding with another build, it reacts completely differently than if the raycast doesn't collide with anything. Once it collides with another build, then it only cares about where the raycast hits on that build. It's easier explained with this example. When I hold up my cone here, the raycast ends such that the build will be placed on top of the wall. But once there's a stair over me, now all that matters is whether I'm looking at the top or bottom half of the stair. If I look at the bottom half, nothing happens because it's trying to place on a tile that already has a stair. Here's another example using my favorite build, the U-ramp. When someone ramps over you normally, you just have to look above the halfway point on the ramp, which is here, and you're able to place a cone and floor above the ramp. But when someone U-ramps over you, you can't do the same thing. Because the halfway point on the U-ramp is just above the flat part, you can only build on top of it when looking at this part of it. But instead, you can look at the top half of a wall in front of you and accomplish the same thing. This mechanic is also why you can look straight down to place a wall in front of you when it's placing too far away. As soon as the raycast starts colliding with the floor you're standing on, it will place directly in front of you. The last step in determining where your build will ultimately place is what I like to call magnets, and it's pretty simple. If after all the other steps the build would have nothing to connect to, Fortnite tries to move it up or down one tile to something it can connect to. As you can imagine, this has many uses, but the most common is connecting the second height or any build below you. Normally you can't build that far down, but if there's nothing else to connect to, Fortnite will try to move the wall one extra tile down, allowing you to connect from further away. Another common use of magnets is placing cones into boxes from below. You could also use the mechanic of looking at the top half of a stair to get the cone in, but even if there's nothing below their box, the magnets mechanic will pull the cone up into the box anyway. Next, it's important to know the difference between the two pieces that occupy the same space, stairs and cones, because a lot of people think that this pre-edited cone would function the same way as a stair, but it doesn't in many situations. Yes, they have the same health, same basic shape, but for one, cones and stairs have different connection points. Think of connection points as the points the raycast use to figure out where is the closest. The connection point of a build is usually in the middle, but the connection point of a build doesn't change when you edit it. So the cone that's pre-edited into a stair has a lower connection point than a normal stair. This makes it so that you can build these cone stairs higher up than you can normal stairs, but you also can't build them as far down. The other difference, the most important difference, is that cones can be placed vertically through other builds. Why? I don't have a clue. But for some reason it was decided that cones can just ignore other builds on the vertical axis. So if there's a stair and floor above you, not a problem. If someone's in a tarp 2 layers below you, that's still not a problem if you pre-edit the cone. You can just build straight through the top of their tarp. But now that we've covered all the major points, there are a few other caveats to keep in mind. First, the same way you can build further when looking left because the camera is to your right applies vertically. You can build further by looking down because the camera is above your character. Lastly, I didn't get these set of rules from Fortnite's code or anything official. I am a programmer myself, so I can imagine how it may have been implemented, but I've never actually seen any of Fortnite's code. I created these set of rules to explain how I understand the building grid in a way that hopefully everyone can understand. This understanding of the building grid is what allows you to make use of advanced strategies like the ones in these videos. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and until next time, farewell.
Don't worry.
You can't predict sick days, but with Kleenex, you can be prepared for them.
Ask any Fortnite pro who the best creative player in Europe is, and 9 times out of 10 they'll say Marius. But recently he's been converting those creative skills into tournament placements, placing 4th in grand finals last season, winning the first solo cash cup this season with an insane match history, and now he's just beaten the European record for the highest elims in a solo cash cup game with a 34 elim win. Marius lands at the Underworld as his goal is to get the Mythic Harbinger SMG, and most importantly of all, the Aspect of Siphon medallion. This would allow him to spend much more of his time fighting, as he doesn't have to spend that time healing, increasing the potential number of elims he can get in a single game. This seems like an easy task, as there's only one single player contesting the drop spot. However, there's at least 10 different people who've landed around this drop spot that can all rotate in late in order to fight for this medallion. So after looting, he immediately looks to damage the contesting player, however they escape. Knowing that if he starts to fight the boss, he'll just get pushed by one of these players, he immediately rotates to the west of the drop spot to harvest the fast harvesting brick before pushing some of the surrounding players. He fails to open the fight with a snipe, but to close the gap gap as quickly as possible, he drops into the underworld water to gain 3 dash charges. In order to move as fast as possible with these, you must sprint jump and then use the dashes, as this allows you to keep that momentum once the dash is over, allowing you to then slide and move faster overall. Using this technique, Marius cuts the distance between him and the other player in half. However, he's exposed and takes 42 damage. Momentum is one of the most important elements of fighting, and Marius is a master of that. He doesn't stop to heal, instead he ramps height at the same time as the opponent, but just splashes once whilst doing so, allowing him to continue to pressure the opponent. But the real secret to success is the way that he thinks about fighting. Marius plays reactively, not proactively. So throughout this entire fight, his crosshair is placed on the opponent, so he's always aware of where the opponent is and what they're doing, which allows him to react to any plays they try to make. The opponent has height and is about to right hand peek, so Marius blocks with a cone before trying to counter with a side jump shot. However, notice the lack of sprint here. This side jump was done by simply walking to the right whilst the crosshair remained entirely on the opponent, jumping and then trying to place a wall in front with a floor above and below. If he attempted to do this while sprinting, he would jump much higher into the sky, exposing himself. There's also a pull-out delay when you're going from sprinting to his shotgun, meaning he'd both be more visible to the other player and not be able to shoot back as quickly. But as you can see, the opponent manages to grab the wall in front of him, and in a lot of cases could edit through and cone or ramp Marius. However, since he's been watching him this entire time, he knows that he is not going to do this, so the side jump is a safe play to make. However, to prevent getting pieced, he walks backwards whilst placing a ramp to block any edits the opponent may make, all again whilst keeping his crosshair exactly where the opponent is. Since he's one layer above, Marius jumps backwards and lands on a ramp, then places 2 high walls to attempt to piece the opponent on this layer, but unfortunately they manage to escape. Unlike last time though, Marius actually does a sprinting side jump. From a cone, there's almost no way to do a side jump without editing it up, but since a sprint jump increases the height of the jump slightly, it's possible to sprint side jump from a cone inside of a box. So with Marius standing on a cone with a ramp over his head, he can quickly elevate himself up to the same layer that the opponent is on. So he sprint jumps, turns around, places a wall and a floor to stand on before switching to his shotgun, then jumps again and takes a shot. He then blocks any returning damage with the wall in front of him, but also continues the upward momentum by placing a ramp to stand on and one over his head to cover his angles. Now this entire side jump sequence is a genius and, in my opinion, a must learn, despite the fact he doesn't actually hit a bullet here. Remember how sprinting side jumps have a delay before you can shoot, as you still have to pull out that shotgun? Well, there is a 0 delay between sprint jumping and building, as there's no pull out time on building blueprints. So after sprint jumping up a layer from a cone, Marius is able to place a wall and a floor to block any potential damage, then go for a much more protected jump shot. This also gives him a little bit more time to line up the shot, despite the fact that he misses again. From here, Marius baits the opponent to push forward by splashing over a right hand peak before covering the top with a floor and editing the wall into a bottom right to set up a chop out. Whilst pickaxing, he continually looks for shots. However, the beauty of this chop out is that he intentionally reconnects it and then chops out for a second time. During a jump chop, he hits this for 39 damage and then places a wall in front and a floor on top to block his angles. Had he not placed the wall, he wouldn't have been able to place the floor on top since this was all being chopped out, so this wall was required. However, the opponent then tries to reconnect and build back onto this, but because Marius edits him and chops him out for a second time, this results in him falling with his blueprints out, allowing Marius to grab the wall between them. However, given the option, Marius has incredible muscle memory to make a window edit, this 4-tiled bottom right edit, or this bottom 3-tile. In watching his fights, it's extremely rare to see him make a bad 50-50 left-hand edit. The 4-tile bottom right is really unique since it has this curve to it which allows the player to have a right-hand peek, whilst entirely hiding their head from a lot of angles. However, in this case, Marius chooses the 3-tile edit as it has the same effect, but you just have to crouch. But by this point, another player has attempted to fight the boss back in the POI, and Marius takes advantage of this. Since there are many minions that spawn during the fight, the visual footstep setting can be abused. Since almost every player has the setting on due to Fortnite's amazing sound mix, it can be hard to differentiate which footsteps are NPCs and which are players, because for some reason these two aren't different colors or icons. A lot of the time, players don't even have to crouch, as they can just walk straight up to a person fighting the boss and shoot them. Now these NPCs often spray at the player and miss. Now that's great for the player's health trying to fight the boss, however their bullets have to hit something, and that something is for the most part the builds that are protecting them, and it's often the builds that are behind the player which they do not notice have been destroyed. So after starting this fight, Marius rotates behind the player and jumps, which removes his footstep audio, so it's very hard to track him. And since the NPCs have sprayed a wall open behind the player, Marius is able to hit a big shot and then finish the fight off quickly. Now because he's aware that people will try to do the exact same thing to him, whilst fighting the minions, he continually scouts around him, which allows him to pick up another easy Elim onto Pix, who stuck up from possibly the worst angle possible, and then importantly he boxes up in the center of the room. The final stage of the boss fight occurs once all of the minions are dead, as Hades will jump from his chair and then he'll spawn 2 minions with him directly in front of him. But since Marius is now in the center of the room, this allows him to figure out if any of the players are pushing in. Since the boss and the minions are in front of him, any visual audio footsteps that are not in this direction are clearly players coming for the coin, which allows him to spot a player to his left. After finishing off the boss, Marius dashes to the loot, covering this left side, and immediately boxes up on it. Now, knowing that the other player will most likely try to psycho into this box whilst he's looting, he instantly edits a window, catching the player with his pistol out. With a nice ramp and a few walls immediately after, he's able to delete this player from the lobby without taking any damage back. After chasing down the 5th and final contesting player, he's finally set up to win the game with the aspect of Siphon Medallion and the Mythic Harbinger SMG. This is great for W keying and dropping high Elim games, but the real beauty of this drop spot is that he only has to rotate another 400 meters to get to Grim Gate, where he can continue to fight for the Mythic Gatekeeper shotgun and the aspect of Agility Medallion. Since this POI is closer to the center of the map, it has even more people that might rotate through here, so on average this boss fight will take longer to finish than the fight at the Underworld, meaning when Marius arrives here, there's actually still 3 players fighting for this. But he has to be the player who beats the boss, as the first person to grab the medallion grabs these infinite dash charges and just runs away, so it's incredibly difficult and time consuming to chase them down. He sees 2 players running away from the massive builds fighting each other, so he takes his opportunity to finish off the boss, blocking the angles that both of these players went to at the same time. With his loot secured, he now has the medallion that will grant him 50 Siphon on Elim, another one which will give him infinitely charging 0-point dashes, a mythic SMG, and the strongest shotgun in the meta. The perfect loadout to drop another 29 Elims. After third partying Elim number 6, he's left up against Kiro, who recently just placed 1 spot higher than him in the FNCS Grand Finals, placing 3rd. He almost gets fully pieced, but since he placed a cone before starting the fight, he's easily able to edit it and block the shot, and avoids getting fully boxed by phasing out of the top. It was close, but he makes a great play to turn around and spray back through the floor, resetting the cone and hitting Kiro down to almost 0 HP. From here, because he has the dash medallion, he can just spray and break the wall at the same time, whilst dashing to fire straight behind Kiro, finishing off the fight. And he actually does something very similar in fight 8 and a lot through the fights that we're going to see. After pumping the opponent for 97 damage, he ensures the Gatekeeper shotgun is reloaded and then sprays straight into the back of the box and finishes the player off with the shotgun, ensuring to drop his sniper for 4 floppers, which we will come back to much later. Note how he dashes though. Marius aims for the back left corner of the box, as this means all he'll have to do is turn to his right to keep track of the opponent. Had he dashed into the back middle of the box, the opponent could be on his left, it could be on his right, and he'd have to spin around to try and find them. But the Mythic Gatekeeper shotgun is so strong it's almost impossible to not kill someone with 3 shots in it, even from 200 HP. But combine this with the health advantage that he got at the start of this fight, the surprise dash into the box, and it's almost close to impossible for Marius to lose these fights. But this shotgun doesn't just do insane damage to only players, this also applies to structures. The Mythic Gatekeeper deals 93 structure damage, a very important number. Each rarity below this decreases by either 4 or 5, down to the point where the grey deals 72 structure damage. Now this is a significant deal, as this is less than the 75 damage from a pickaxe, which means that 1 shot and 1 pickaxe won't break a fully built wood wall, so it's basically not even worth shooting at walls. However, the 93 structure damage for the Mythic is incredibly important, because when a build piece is edited, the HP reduces. Now, from a fully built build piece, almost every single edit reduces to either 93 or less HP, which means you can do just as Marius does here in Elim 9 and spray into the opponent's box, take your shotgun out and wait for them to edit the cone and just replace it with 1 single shot. A brick cone edited from full health will drop to, you guessed it, 93 health.
Oh, no. That,
meaning Marius can replace it in 1 shot and finish off the opponent. Again, it's important that all weapons are reloaded prior to attempting this, as running out of ammo here is basically just an instant death. With these damage numbers in mind, it's actually possible just to stand outside of an opponent's wall, wait for them to edit, then immediately replace their wall with 1 single shot. But to counter this, there are a few edits that won't drop the wall below 93 HP. Any edit on a wood wall is already out of the question, as that drops to less HP. However, by editing a window or a door on a brick wall, this will leave it at 96 HP HP, meaning it will survive. For reference, any 3-tile edit will leave it at 93 HP exactly, meaning it will be broken, so your choice of edit is very important. On a metal wall, both windows and 3-tile edits will leave it above the 93 HP, however a 4-tile edit or a top row will leave it at 81 HP, meaning it can be replaced. However though, remember these are all just assuming that the build started at full HP, so if the walls are weaker than this because they've just been freshly placed or they've already previously been edited, then this strategy will work on every single build piece. Many players are also taking the purple or gold rarities of the Gatekeeper shotgun over the mythic, as they can modify them to have the drum mag attachment. This will give them 5 bullets per magazine, so they don't have to reload as frequently. However, since these do less than 93 structure damage, they're not as good, especially when you consider that mythic already has a speed mag attached, so it's definitely preference. The player just has to be mindful when it comes to reloading this weapon, as it needs to be done frequently, in particular before jumping into the box. Now, if you hadn't noticed by one of our first fights, Marius loves chopping players out. In Elim 10, an opponent boxes on top of one of his walls, so to drop him out, he just edits a peanut butter edit, but his movement here is what's really important. Note how when the box breaks, Marius moves forward and jumps. This is in case the player manages to connect some of the floors and manages to rebox, as Marius would simply land inside of the box that he's just built and would be able to finish the player off. However, they don't, so he just kills them straight away. Now, despite having the aspect of agility medallion to give him the dashes, he uses a lot of these up in closing the distance between him and Elim number 11. So similar to the second fight, Marius ensures he recharges these in the water before pushing the other player, which allows him to finish the fight quickly. And this is basically what the majority of the good players are doing who land in the top left of the map, always ensuring they have some sort of dashes loaded on them. Now, after dashing into a few more players' boxes, Marius shows some great building grid knowledge going into fight 16. In this situation, many players would attempt to just replace the wall, make an edit, and take a shot. However, this can allow the other player to escape or just drag the fight on for an unnecessarily long time. So whilst pickaxing the opponent's wall, Marius understands that from the angle that he's standing at, the opponent can't actually hold the wall at all. So rather than trying to replace it, he simply just pickaxes through and swings left into the box, opening the fight with a 130 pump. But since he knows the opponent can't have placed a wall in that tile, he swings back to the right, outside of the box, to avoid taking damage in return, and at the same time he places a wall to claim this space and a cone to stand on safely. He then just runs through and finishes the player off, turning what could have been a long fight into one that was over in seconds. Now, up until the moving zones, he basically does a combination of nice piece control, dash phasing into players' boxes, and never-ending pressure with the Harbinger SMG. So before the moving zones start, he's already amassed 24 elims, but his endgame strategy is particularly unique. Marius grabs 3 medkits from body he failed to get the elim from, and combining this with the floppers he had earlier, he has a ton of white heals. Now, solo Kashka games often go down to heal off, so you may be thinking he's just carrying these to ensure that he wins the game and $100. This is true, but it's also so he can play the backside of the storm. At the time of this tournament, the wings of Icarus were temporarily disabled, meaning there were no mobility items outside of the Flowberry Fizz. This means that the backside of the moving zones are even more congested with players than normal. Now, if you're looking to drop high elim games, this is where you've got to be. However, there is of course a high risk of dying unless you are the only player in the lobby with Siphon, allowing your HP to recharge after every elim. And if Marius gets stuck in amongst all the old builds, he has a ton of white health to keep him alive. Best of all, you can just dash out of the backside of the box using the 0-point dashes, box up and spray the players behind him, racking up even more elims. Being the only player with Siphon and infinite dashes is a recipe for success. Now, the game comes down to a final 1v1, Marius versus a fake Cooper who's healing off in the back of Storm. Now, he could easily win the game. He's got the Siphon medallion, so he's got 100 HP, he's floppers and medkits, so he could easily win the game. However, he sees the other player medkitting in Storm and isn't sure how many white heals he has, so he dashes over to him. After replacing the wall, he's cautious as the other player is holding his pump out, so to avoid getting one pumped, he takes his time and pops his flopper, and then edits a beautiful 4-tile bottom right, exposing the player's legs without giving him line of sight, and wins the game with 34 elims.
Holy fucking shit, dude. That was fucking sweet. That was a fucking sweet edit. That was so fucking
A superior smooth taste worth playing for. Michelob Ultra, superior light beer.
There's a completely unknown Fortnite player who has been outplacing and destroying the best professional players in the world. This season, he's won FNCS Divisional Cup, won his group in the FNCS semi-finals, made the entire country of France hate him, won 2 of the 6 solo cash cups, and almost won FNCS Grand Finals. Now, similar to some of the world's best players, he's even received some cheating accusations. This player's name is Demis. Now, Demis is a player who's been competing since 2020. However, he only got his first earnings back in January of 2023 with the introduction of the Solar Victory Cups. Now, in that format, all he had to do was qualify to the finals and then win a game, and you'd win $100. Turns out that Demis is quite the solo player, and he was able to win 12 Solo Victory Cup games and $1,200 before ever earning any team mode. Now, I had heard about how good Demis was, not because I'm a noticer, but because my friend Coach Harry is. Jump forward a few months after this conversation, and all of a sudden Demis is at the top of every single leaderboard, and he seems to be a massive part of why so many French fans are sending death threats and hate mail towards any Polish player. You see, this year's FNCS Global Championship is held in Lyon in France. You see, for most of this season, Kami, Sei, and Hari, who are Polish players, have been fighting off spawn at Lost Lake against Akira, Exuis, and Podesai, French players. Now, in order to make it to the FNCS Grand Finals, the biggest tournament of the season, you need to come in the top 10 in your group. However, these two teams were in different groups, which meant that they were both going to land at the same drop spot completely uncontested. Now, this means it's significantly easier for you to get into the top 10 of the leaderboards, meaning that it's going to be much easier for you to make it to Grand Finals. And if both of them are in different groups, this means it'll be much easier for both of them to qualify and get a top 10. The result of this is they'll both be contesting each other and fighting off spawn in Grand Finals, and more than likely won't do well in the one tournament where it really matters, because they'll either die half of their games or have other teams rotate in and kill them. And that's where Demis comes in. See, this season he's playing with Pix and Darm, and they usually land at Pumped Power. Coincidentally, they were also in the same group as French team Akira, Exuis, and Podesai. Now, Pumped Power was going to be contested by another team, so rather than fighting them there, Demis's team decided to land at Lost Lake contesting Akira, Exuis, and Podesai. Now, many of the French fans were upset about this. He's playing with Pix and Darm, and they usually land at Pumped Power. Coincidentally, they were also in the same group as French team Akira, Exuis, and Podesai. Now, Pumped Power was going to be contested by another team, so rather than fighting them there, Demis's team decided to land at Lost Lake as French team Akira, Exuis, and Podesai. Now, Pumped Power was going to be contested by another team, so rather than fighting them there, Demis's team decided to land at Lost Lake contesting Akira, Exuis, and Podesai. Now, many of the French fans were upset about this because they're clearly thinking that Kami, Sei, and Hari, another Polish team, have got their Polish friends to change drop spot to land on Akira, Exuis, and Podesai to ensure they don't qualify to the Grand Finals, to make things easier for Kami, Sei, and Hari. Whether or not this is true, we will never know, but what we do know is they absolutely bossed this lobby. Now, if you know anything about Polish players in Fortnite, they don't really have the best reputation for being the fraggiest of players. If anything, their reputation is usually being incredibly smart, being able to understand position, creating great strategies, rotating incredibly well, and are generally regarded as some of the smartest and most consistent Fortnite players of all time. But their fighting skill is nearly always their weakest link. For Demis, Pix, and Darm, this is not an issue. Their worst game in this tournament was a top 8, and they even managed to win the final game with 17 elims. Out of their 50 total elims in this tournament, Demis had 22 of these, having some insane major clutch ups. For example, in game number 2, where Pix ended up going down early, he was able to clutch up a top 2 with 7 elims. They won their group and qualified through to their first FNCS Grand Finals, whereas the contesting team of Akira, Podesai, and Exuis, who they had been bossing off spawn, ended up in 28th, not qualifying. Funnily enough, they did manage to then qualify through the last chance major by winning a game and contested Kami, Sei, and Hari, and as predicted, with both teams contesting each other, they both did badly. But Demis's trio with Pix and Darm did incredibly well. So what is it that makes him so good? If you watch any of Demis's gameplay, you'll immediately notice how incredibly good his movement is. Take this kill against an absolute NPC. Sorry NPC if you're watching this. Notice how after hitting a shot onto the other player, he swings around the right hand side and grabs a wall in front of him. He does not, however, just keep running straight into the other player's box. Instead, he edits a bottom right 4-tile edit and swings to the left a little bit to ensure he's hidden behind it. If you watch this from the other player's perspective, he is 100% hidden behind this edit, which allows him to hit a big shot. He then resets the edit and immediately starts sprinting around to the other side of the player. Since you can edit while sprinting, he edits that wall and slides into the box, making it incredibly hard for him to get hit, allowing him to easily finish off the other player who was just completely lost. When I was 1v1ing Veno for my previous video, he said that if he's in a box with another player, When he shoots his shotgun, rather than switching to his assault rifle, he'll sprint and slide to try and avoid being hit after that, and then go for another pump shot. It seems like more and more the best players are implementing sprint slides into their gameplay when you're in a 1 tile radius, and this completely makes sense. Because Fortnite has not the best servers and there's usually quite a lot of desync, the player who moves the fastest will usually have a good peeker's advantage. I will do a whole video on this eventually. So by sprint sliding, the opponent becomes visible to you way faster than you become visible to the opponent. So even where in this scenario he's sliding into a left-hand peek, he actually has the peeker's advantage because he's moving so fast. Plus, he's so low to the ground, it's just really difficult to hit him. Now, if you go back and watch that clutch where he ended up second with 7 eliminations from the FNCS group stages, you can see him do this mechanic all of the time in endgame. This mechanic can also be used just to slide straight into people's boxes, such as here when he gets the 29th elim out of these 31s, where if you time the wall break correctly, you can just phase straight in because you're moving faster. But I think the coolest use of this is when Demis is getting W keyed here, and after getting hit, he turns, sprints, jumps, resets the wall, places a ramp, all whilst flying backwards. But because he has this sprint jump momentum that he's moving backwards, this actually allows him to slide down the ramp, spin around, and create another full box with a ramp inside, which in a matter of 1 second creates 3 layers between him and the other player who's trying to fight him. This gives him time to heal, and then of course he can just edit through all of these builds and then kills the player. But there's way more examples than just sprint sliding. Take this clip, for example, from the literal next elim, where he gets doubles over the other player. Now, most people jump down into the box, which is extremely risky, and since the other player drops back through his other wall, Demis actually has the awareness to walk along the other player's wall and crouch to try and get an angle. Unfortunately, he is not successful here and kills the player in another way, but this micro movement awareness, I genuinely don't think I've ever seen from any other player. Another trend I noticed with Demis is he's insanely good at getting doubles over other players. In this scenario, the other player boxes up, and Demis notices that he's only connected by 2 walls, so he just sprays these out to knock the other player down. Now, most people in this scenario, when that player is falling, they're going to try and take a shot and then grab a wall between him and the other player. But instead, what Demis does is he shoots a shot to get damage off and then immediately elevates himself up 1 layer. At this point, the other player is really busy trying to grab those walls that most people would take, which means Demis can freely grab the floor in the cone above the player. Then all he needs to do is double it down, a couple walls in a cone, and a pump shot to finish him off. And one of the reasons he can do this so easily is because he's a really good read on what other players are going to do. Take this scenario, for example, where Cringe here is getting lobby focused by a bunch of players. Now, most people would just try and smack on the wall behind him and take it, but instead, he reads that Cringe is going to go down a layer, and by the time he does, Demis has already boxed that side up and is already pickaxing on that wall, giving the other players 0 time to react. And this elim's also just another great showcasing of his good movement fundamentals as he keeps swinging behind the peanut butter edit rather than just running into the box and trying to finish off Cringe quickly. And I think the best way to describe his fighting playstyle overall is just calm and patient. In this endgame, he kills 3 pros: Vico, Cammy, and Thomas HD. But the one onto Thomas HD is particularly interesting. He's in no way afraid to tank any storm here whatsoever, and despite the pressure of a 1v1 scenario and the ticking storm damage, he still takes the time to make sure he's making a good angle and taking a good right-hand peek. And this ultimately wins him the game. These things are also a positive feedback loop, where the more calm Demis is, the easier it is to read the opponents. And the easier it is to read the opponents, the less you have to panic, and therefore the calmer you can be. Ultimately, I think this positive feedback loop is one of the reasons why Demis is as good as he is. But interestingly, having good awareness on the other player is what has made some people to believe that Demis is cheating. In his 31 elim solo cash cup game, he manages to get an elim and then immediately turns around and full boxes up above another player, clearly knowing exactly where he is. He breaks through the floor, and this fellow Polish player lives up to the Polish reputation of not really being able to fight and just kind of jumps around the box and dies. Now, this TikTok seems to make it seem like this is one of the most suspicious things of all time. How did he know he was hiding in such a good hiding spot that could never be found? He's clearly using ESP to see through walls. Or he has the Void Boon, and he just got an elim, and you can literally see the effect leave the player's body as he gets eliminated and highlight the other player, making it the freest elim of all time. There's also a point later in this TikTok where this guy's like, how could he possibly see someone when he was in this cone? How would he ever know he's there? When he literally just saw the person in the cone as it was just building earlier. And then another clip after, he's like, how did he know this player was in this cone? But when Demis approaches the box, you can see him take his cone out and check the cones. If someone's inside of it, you'll see a lock symbol in the center of your screen. So Demis can clearly see that there's someone just sitting sitting in this cone at this exact moment. Now, 200,000 people saw this TikTok and maybe think that Demis is cheating because of this, which is a real shame. And I'm not going to say he isn't, but I've seen zero clips that make it think that he is. And the more I watch him, the more I realize this guy's just booga. Now, obviously, dropping a 31 bomb against opens level players in the first game of a solo cash cup is still impressive, but I think the most impressive thing about Demis when he fights in trios with Pix and Darm is the strategies that they come up with to fight other top level pro teams. In the FNCS semi-finals, as I already mentioned, they were contesting the French team of Akira, Podesai and Exuis. And in this particular game, they were playing this fight defensively, whereas the French team were the ones aggressing them. As soon as this fight commences, all three of them immediately crouch at the exact same time almost, making it really difficult for the French team to figure out exactly where they are and which angles they should take. After a couple of back and forwards, Demis and Darm make an amazing play where they bait the other team. They tarp over to the other building whilst Pix is still crouching down below. The French team now thinks they've all rotated over, which allows Pix to sneak up on top and beam X-Squeeze. He drops down and falls straight into Darm, who wipes him out. This now becomes a 3v2 and Demis is able to get the elim on both of the other two players. So this was a great bait and switch which allowed Pix to get behind the team. In another game, they did a really nice setup where Darm went on top of the main building, Pix ramped up on the right side to make sure they couldn't escape, and Demis was on the south, which basically forced Podesai, X-Squeeze and Akira to either rotate to the north or just fight them. And since they were trapped inside the building, this actually allowed Demis just to spend a ton of time looting and get a good mat advantage. They then baited that they left the fight by all teleporting south, but then immediately teleported back up north and created a beautiful pinch where Demis was flanking around the left and Pix and Darm were on the right hand side, completely sandwiching Akira and X-Squeeze together into the middle, which allowed them to jump in and just finish the fight. Unfortunately, this footage is really laggy. Thank you, replay mode. As I've been recording this video, FNCS Grand Finals has been going on and they've been actually contending for first place. Unfortunately, they weren't able to win because this video would have been too cinema, but Demis, Pix and Darm were absolutely popping off and were really impressive for a first-time Grands team. It'll be interesting to see their progression across the entire year. Now, in this video, I covered a lot about how Demis has had some cheating accusations, which I think don't hold any weight, but way more people have accused Peterbot of cheating, and you can see my full analysis of how Peterbot beat the allegations by clicking on this video right. From the most broken weapon mods to the best movement settings, here are 50 Chapter 5 tips that actually work. First up, everything you need to know about weapon mods. Now, what you'll get on weapons is completely RNG. Grey weapon.
After all your hard work, you can't let anything stand in your way. That's why you have...
This is how you beat Fortnite pros. It's obviously a joke. I've collected clips from 5 of the best solo cash cup players in the world, but instead I'm going to show you the mistakes they make and how they lose fights. First up is Peterbot. Let's see this clip from his POV first. Yeah, the mistake here is it's kind of obvious. There's a player in the cone and he walks over it. It's not exactly rocket science. However, it's really important to note that just before the moving zones, around 50% of cones are going to have players inside of them as they're scouting their next rotation. It's best just to assume that every cone has a player in it and to play around this rather than just assuming cones don't have players in them. Don't worry, the next game he makes up for the mistake and drops a 35 elim win. However, in his third game, an opponent is easily able to capitalize on a massive mistake that he makes.
Why is he like running?
Just doing a little review. About to hop in Fortnite. Just doing a little review so I can remember everything I need to do going into the next season.
Bro, my dog's griefing me, bro. Bro, my dog's just griefing, bro. How? I crouched. Bro. Bro, my dogs are griefing. I can't hear.
Outside of being griefed by his dogs, you may think that running straight into the opponent's box and getting hit for 193 damage was the main mistake here. In reality, he had 7 builds and the other player had already been hit for white damage, so this wasn't necessarily a bad play. However, the third-party player knows that Peterbot is weak and does a really good job of continually pressuring him to cancel any opportunity he has to heal. Peter runs almost completely out of materials and does a great edit that's timed with the opponent's pickaxe, and he deals 63 damage. However, the timing of his next next edit is actually what gets him killed. At the 75 HP he's at, he can't afford to make a poor peek. However, he confirms the edit and then attempts to crouch behind it. From the opponent's POV, you can clearly see Peter's head after he's edited, which loses him the fight. Had Peter moved to the left and crouched prior to confirming the edit, then he would have been completely hidden. And I will say that confirming edits too quickly is a really common issue that edit on release players have, and I would know because I do all the time. Now, to switch things up a bit, watch how Reet approaches the enemy's box in this clip and see if you can pick out the 3 main mistakes he makes.
He just phases in for a shot.
Now here, Reet attempts to steal the wall from behind Bully, however he was watching Reet approach from a right hand peek, so he knew to place a wall and to peanut butter her edit when he dropped down on it. Similar to the Peterbot clip we showed earlier, Bully confirms his edit a little bit too early and takes damage, however he had some great movement to swing to the left so he could hit 2 more shots with the auto shotgun, giving him the health advantage. It is very dangerous to drop directly onto the wall of a good player, and in most cases it's better to attack from a diagonal angle or to pre-piece to give yourself an escape route. Now remember when Reet said this?
He just phases in for a shot. Wow.
That's because of the second mistake that Reet made, which was not placing a cone on top of his box. This allowed Bully to grab this build piece and then edit one corner of it. With this edit, if you spray and crouch into the cone, you are guaranteed to phase straight through into the box, which in this scenario wiped out Reet. Of course, the obvious third mistake is just Reet missed like I think 15 edits here and couldn't get out of the box. Now, speaking of bad edits, Reet makes a really common mistake in this next example. Throughout this fight, Reet did a really great job of switching up his angles to pressure the opponent and to heal block them, and in particular, notice how his crosshair is constantly following and tracking the player. This basically just gives him information on when to shoot and what to piece. However, at this point, he loses sight of the opponent and he attempts to piece the box from a big wide edit, not seeing that the player is directly behind his character model. Of course, after that, he does miss a ton of shots, but if you've lost sight of the other player, the last thing you want to do is make a big wide edit, as players like Gloomzy can run straight into your face and win the aim duel. I actually found another great example of this exact same edit being used very poorly, but by Tayson. Now here he's tried to claim some space in Loot Island and is making a good play to pressure the opponent's cone from below using a one-tile edit. However, if he'd done this from behind a peanut butter edit, then the other player would have not been able to run straight into his face and one-pump him. Unfortunately, players getting into his box seems to be a reoccurring theme. The opponent started this fight by sneaking and getting some great opening damage onto Tayson, meaning that he then had to play defensively. Bunny sees a floor that Tayson has missed, and after pickaxing the cone, he then places the floor underneath. This means that when he breaks through the cone, he can go straight into the box. However, Tayson actually makes a great play here, which was to open a wide edit, expecting Bunny to drop in, but he unfortunately misses the shot and then resets the wall. However, after editing and then resetting a wall, it's at almost 0 HP, which means Bunny can use his one shotgun shot to perfectly phase through it before switching to his AR to finish off Tayson. Now, since Tayson had the medallion and he had some builds remaining, moving into this box and going for another edit right after resetting the wall was a massive mistake, which led to the opponent being able to phase into his box and then to his inevitable death. Now, this phasing mechanic is really useful to learn and is a really common way of being able to kill the best players in the world once you have the HP advantage, such as how Vino dies here. Now, this fight from Vino is a long and drawn out one with many good angles taken from both sides, but Podesai's opening damage was beautiful. He ramps up, blocking the front and to the left with a wall which will block any attempt at a jump shot from Vino, and then he places a cone over the top of the ramp. Vino, from the other side, predicting Podesai to edit through this cone, attempts to do a sprinting jump shot to the side. However, Podesai is perfectly set up with a right hand peek and hits him for big damage. Now, since Vino was sprinting, he has a slight delay before he can build or shoot, meaning Podesai bullseye can snag the wall and full box him, hitting him down to around 23 HP. At this point, it's just a matter of phasing into the box with his pickaxe, and it's over. Now, the only way Podesai would die in this situation is if he does what Muzz does here in this clip.
No pump ammo, bro. I died to add-on. All good.
In this fight, Muzz does a really nice play where he tries to pre-fire the enemy's edit and then blocks the shot back with his own cone. Now, I've seen this a million times and it's a great way to learn, but the second edit he did here, where he edited the third tile on this cone, gave him complete protection from the other player so that he could safely attempt to retake the wall. Now, he wasn't able to grab it this first time, but he was able to...
I died to add-on. All good.
In this fight, Muzz does a really nice play where he tries to pre-fire the enemy's edit and then blocks the shot back with his own cone. Now, I've seen this a million times and it's a great play to learn, but the second edit he did here, where he edited the third tile on this cone, gave him complete protection from the other player so that he could safely attempt to retake the wall. Now, he wasn't able to grab it this first time, but he was able to steal it back after that. Then he makes a massive mistake of jumping over the wall and into the other player's box with no AR ammo, which does cost him around 120 HP. Now, I will say a good rule of thumb is to immediately ensure you're safe after finishing a fight, since third parties are so common this season. This particular clip wasn't a great example of that, as there was genuinely very little time for Muzz to react to Anon pickaxing in the back wall. However, this clip is a much better example. See if you can figure out what the massive mistake was that Muzz made here.
He traded. Nice, bro. That kid was actually dog shit. What the fuck? Yo, that kid was not good at Fortnite, bro. I can't see. I can't see through the tree. Oh, is that a cheater? I don't even know.
So yes, the tree did block his sightlines, unfortunately. However, the big mistake Muzz made here was just sitting in a wood box. In this season, as soon as you finish a fight, other players will try to psycho straight into your box because you're weak. So ensuring you're safe is absolutely critical before you start to heal. As soon as you finish your fight, you should absolutely create another box, whether it's brick or metal, to ensure you have a safe space with a lot of edits that you can work from in case another team pushes in.
If you enjoyed this video, that one on screen right there is also a total banger. Just trust me, just click it, watch it, it's great.
Hey everybody, in this video we are going to talk about peeking in Fortnite. Peeks are the single best thing to learn in Fortnite. And I know that in the past I've said that learning how to aim is where most players should start, but since then I've realized that understanding and using peeks the right way, that's way more important. It doesn't matter how good your aim is, how good your movement is, and if you play build mode, it doesn't matter how fast your builds and edits are. If you don't understand peeks and how to use them, you cannot win fights decisively. And that's the beauty of Fortnite, right? Especially if you use builds and edits, you can win fights against whole teams without taking any damage, but only if you know how to peek. Oh, you like that? So to start, let's talk about what peeks are. A peek happens every time you move out from behind cover to shoot a player. If you're standing still, that's not a peek.
Interesting.
If you're moving slowly, that is a peek, but it's not the best peek. Good peeks are fast, and they need to be fast because of something called peeker's advantage. What are you doing there? Some of you may have heard of that phrase, peeker's advantage. Now, this is not related to right-hand peek or left-hand peek in Fortnite. But for those of you who are new to the game, in Fortnite, when you peek from the right side of cover like this, you can shoot your opponent, but they can't shoot you. That's important on its own, but peeker's advantage is different. Peeker's advantage is all about the nature of online multiplayer games. With any online game you play, there's always a difference between what you see on your screen and what your opponent sees on their screen. Oh yeah, that's peeker's advantage, because on his screen, he didn't even see me, he just died. Games don't work the same as real life. There's always a delay, and to demonstrate that, let's watch this split screen view. To record this clip, I had Fortnite running on 2 different computers. I recorded at the exact same time in this split screen view. What you see here is exactly what was happening in real life on both screens. Both of these players have normal ping. It's what, 25 to 30 ping. And if we slow down this moment where the player on the right side is left-hand peeking that player on the left side of the screen, what we can see is the left-hand peek beats the right-hand peek because of peeker's advantage. All right, so let's take a look. Player on the right's doing the peeking. Look at that. So on the right side of the screen, this is where you can shoot from on the left-hand peek. But on the left side of the screen, I can't even see that player yet. Right side is already ready to shoot. Left side can't see. And that's a right-hand peek that you see. And yet the left-hand peek is stronger because he's the player doing the peeking. Let's really slow that down just to this point where I'm able to shoot. There it is. Left-hand peek is capable of hitting a headshot. And in real life, the defending player who's standing still doesn't have a chance to react. In real life, that left-hand peek happens first, which gives that player a huge advantage in the fight because they're shooting a sitting duck. Every time you peek out, your opponent cannot possibly react. And then remember, there's also natural human reaction time stacked on top of this. So that delay is already pretty large. Add on another 200 milliseconds average for human visual reaction time. That's nuts. You have nearly a full half second to line up your shot and shoot before it's possible for the player around that corner standing still to react. So if you're ever dying and it seems like your opponent is just so much faster than you, it's probably because you're standing still and you're letting them peek you. You gotta be moving, man. Gotta be moving. So of course here, if you move quickly with a right-hand peek, that will always be better and safer than a left-hand peek. The reason I recorded this though was to show that a player standing still on a right-hand peek is still going to get beat by a player who moves from a left-hand peek. Peeker's advantage is a really difficult idea to understand and to put into words, so hopefully this helps you visualize what that looks like. Just in general, you need to make sure that you are always peeking. Make sure that every time you're about to open up an edit, you're safely hidden behind cover, you're giving yourself space to pull out your shotgun, and then making sure that you are the player moving out from behind cover to peek your opponent rather than allowing them to peek against you. The second thing to think about while you're working on your peeks is the distance from the peek angle. In general, whenever you peek, you want to be closer to the peek angle than your opponent. For example, let's say a player is peeking from behind this wall. If the player peeks from too far away, the player on the other side of the wall can left-hand peek and get peeker's advantage over that player who has the right-hand peek. But if we flip that around, once that player on the right-hand peek is standing closer to the wall than the enemy player, the right-hand peeker now has peeker's advantage, because that player on the far side of the wall is standing too far away to get behind cover fast enough. This can be another tricky thing to wrap your brain around. You always need to be focused on what the peek angle is during a fight. When you're box fighting, there are all sorts of angles, and whenever you peek, you just need to make sure that your peek angle is closer to you than to your opponent. Finally, now that we understand peeker's advantage and staying closer to the peek angle than your opponent, we can get into the actual technique for peeking, because even if you understand this stuff, you still might make simple mistakes with how you peek out from cover. There is a best way to peek, and it looks a little bit like this. Most players peek by just strafing to the right, shooting, and then strafing to the left to get back behind cover. You can get behind cover a lot more quickly if, instead of strafing to the left, you crouch, turn, and run forward. This is because crouching and running forward is faster than standing up and strafing to the left. Crouching also allows you to move the position of your head. Look at this player spinning around while standing up. I'm never going to miss that shot, but if the player's crouching, I have to think a little bit harder about my aim. Here we can see 2 examples of peeks. In this first example, this is how most players peek. It's very easy for me to shoot the player. And I'm intentionally over peeking in this situation, but look at what happens when I start using my peeking technique. By crouching, snapping my crosshair to the left and running forward, I can move my character model off of my opponent's screen much sooner. Now that we're getting into the specific peeking technique that you need to employ, there are a couple more things to think about. And the first is exactly how far away from the wall should you stand? If you're standing too close to the peek angle, your opponent might be able to see you and shoot you. To visualize the most optimal distance away from that peek angle, what you can do is press yourself against the wall and start holding your targeting button to aim down sights. From here, slowly back away from the wall until you see your shotgun pull up to your shoulder. This is a good distance from the wall to stand for any of your right-hand peeks. From this position, once I move out to the right, I can shoot my opponent, but they cannot shoot me. The last piece you need to add on to this is to make sure that you very quickly hold your targeting key before you shoot. And this isn't to make you more accurate, and you should not be holding targeting as you approach the angle because you want to peek quickly. It's just a very quick, almost a tap of that targeting key to make sure that you tuck your elbow. This is the difference between taking 125 damage from a shotgun compared with taking no damage at all. Then finally, once you've actually shot, this is where you need to crouch, turn to your left, and run forward. This is going to look the same on a right-hand peek or a left-hand peek. With a left-hand peek, you'll follow all of those steps, except you don't need to use your targeting key. I don't need to tuck my elbow on a left-hand peek, so there's no reason to aim down sights. This same technique can be used peeking from behind a cone, jumping behind a peanut butter wall at it, crouch peeking on top of a ramp. You should be trying to use this peeking technique whenever you possibly can. To practice your peeks, there's a really good creative map called Scavok Aim Trainer, which includes a peek course, and I'll include that map code in the video description if you guys would like to check it out. Once you practice that specific peeking technique, I'd recommend going straight into Battle Royale and trying to keep two things in mind. The first is that you always need to be peeking. Remember peeker's advantage. You need to abuse that as much as you possibly can. Take advantage of that difference between what you see on your screen and what your opponent sees on theirs. The second thing to keep in mind is how far from the wall should you stand? And the answer depends on your opponent. If your opponent is closer to the peek angle than you, it means you need to back up and create a new peek angle that is closer to you than it is to the enemy player. Hopefully this is all starting to make sense to you guys. If you're running into any problems with this, or you need a better explanation, feel free to reach out to me on my coaching Discord channel, which I'll also have linked in the video description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out with me during my live streams on Twitch as well. That's always a lot of fun, and I love doing these kinds of demonstrations for you guys while I'm live streaming. Thank you all so much for using code.
Pinkies up for the Bacon Deluxe Sonic Smasher, part of the Smasher lineup. Live free, eat Sonic.
Incoming dishes! Dawn Power Wash flies through 99% of grease in half the time. The better grease getter.
Greetings. Today I have some quick tips on how to instantly improve your tarping. Regardless of whether or not you're the tarper for your trio, these tips will help you anytime you're on height, low ground, or even trying to take height. Starting off, if you're on height, you'll often see players tarping like this to save mats, while still having 2 layers in case someone tries to disconnect you. This isn't bad, but it's not the most effective use of materials. Instead of placing a cone and floor on each square, place them only on the diagonal and place floors on the sides. Here's why it's better. You claim more total space on height, use the same amount of materials, enemies still have to break 2 layers anywhere to disconnect you, and you can edit the floors to shoot anyone directly below you. Just make sure you and your team stay on the cones, otherwise when you edit a floor you can get sprayed up. If you're on height but tarping straight instead of diagonally, it's fine to floor cone everywhere. But if you were gonna double floor cone for some reason, maybe you only have wood left or something, you should instead place floors on either side like when going diagonal. It again keeps you just as protected for the same materials and claims more space. Both of these tips apply exactly the same when you're on low ground. Even though it looks like I'm using more materials, I'm actually using the same amount. And as long as I'm in the center, I'm just as protected. Now let's talk about taking height. This is usually for the situation where you're one of the 2 teams on height and you feel like you can ramp the other team on opposite height to take it. Too often I see players stare for a wall to give themselves 2 layers of protection while ramping. However, it's much better to just triple ramp at them. They have to break all 3 builds now instead of 2 to disconnect you, and you're spending the same amount of materials. This gets even better if you coordinate it with at least one teammate beforehand. You can 6-layer ramp at them using the same amount of materials as if you both were doing it this way. The only thing you have to remember is to place these two walls at the start, otherwise you'll leave a weak point. And if you're worried about them destroying the ramp you're currently running on, you can run between the left and middle ramp. That way they still have to break 2 builds instantly in order to make you fall. Quick bonus tip, if you use the U ramp, you can block off other people's tarps up to 3 layers above you and 2 below. I explain how in depth in this video. Thanks for watching, farewell.
This man's time and sanity were robbed from him because he was watching.
You can see here that even though he has the right hand peek, I get to shoot him first because I have peeker's advantage. So what is peeker's advantage? Peeker's advantage is a term that's widely misused when people actually mean lag compensation, interp, wide peeking, and other things. Peeker's advantage is the benefit the player peeking has due to the defending player's ping. The advantage you can get from peeking a wider angle is much more important, but first let's look at peeker's advantage. Peeker's advantage refers specifically to the benefits the peeking player has due to the defending player's ping. Let's take a look at how a typical peek scenario works with networking in mind. There's a defender, we'll call him Dan, who has 50 milliseconds ping. There's a peeker, Peter, who has 150 ping. Keep in mind ping is how long it takes for data to go to the server and back. So it would actually take only 75 milliseconds for Peter's data to reach the server. We'll assume for simplicity that each player has perfect reaction time. First, Peter starts moving from behind cover to see Dan. As soon as there is line of sight, Peter starts to shoot. It will take 75 milliseconds for this information to reach the server. Meanwhile, Dan has to wait 100 milliseconds before being able to see and therefore shoot Peter. Once Dan shoots, it'll take another 25 milliseconds for the data to reach the server. So in this case, Peter has a 50 millisecond advantage in the engagement. Let's look at it the other way around, where Dan has 150 ping and Peter has 50 ping. First, Peter starts moving from behind cover to see Dan. As soon as there is line of sight, Peter starts to shoot. It will take 25 milliseconds for this information to reach the server. Meanwhile, Dan has to wait 100 milliseconds before being able to see and therefore shoot Peter. Once Dan shoots, it will take another 75 milliseconds for the data to reach the server. So in this case, Peter has a 150 millisecond advantage in the engagement. As it turns out, the peeker will always have an advantage equal to the ping of the defender. The ping of the peeker is negligible because even though it takes longer for the defender to be able to see them, it takes equally as long for their bullet data to reach the server. So if the defender has 0 ping, there is no peeker's advantage. Usually, since the peeker knows when they break line of sight but the defender doesn't, their peeker would be able to pre-fire, giving them an advantage. But Fortnite is different because not only is it in third person, but most builds are transparent enough so that both the defender and peeker can see the other person before there is line of sight, and therefore pre-fire. This is why peeker's advantage isn't as important as taking wider angles. So how exactly do we take wider angles? To start, since Fortnite is a third person shooter, what you're able to see and therefore shoot is not positioned on your body. It's positioned above your right shoulder. This is what makes right hand peek so strong, so when you're able to make a right hand peek, a very small part of you is exposed even though you're able to fully shoot. But you can get other advantages with this knowledge. Take a look at this example. There are 2 players. We'll call this one John and this one Bob. The red dot represents the origin of their point of view. John and Bob are both peeking through a window and a wall between them. John is fully exposed, but Bob has a right hand peek, so Bob should be able to see John first. But what actually happens is John can shoot the right edge of Bob before he can see John at all. Why does this happen? Because John is further away from the wall than Bob is. The player that is further away from the wall will have a geometric advantage in seeing the other player first. We call this taking a wider peek. If we take an example where John is very close to the wall and Bob is further back, Bob has such an advantage that he can fully see John's head and John still can't see him at all. So regardless of whether you have a right hand peek, you should still be as far away from the wall as possible
Give me the keys to the coupe, I'ma pull out. We getting money, don't care about what they.
Right foot creep, oh, walking with that heater. I just wanna see me do my day. All I do is win, win, win. Right foot creep, oh, walking with that heater. Right foot creep. Right foot creep, oh, walking with that heater. Look around. Wanna see me do my dance in these times.
From a youngin', all I ever had was. Shine up, you my little boo thing.
So I tell him it's one of me. Teach me how to teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck.
Everybody love me.
I think you really got it.
Right foot creep, oh.
She a baddie, she know she a 10.
I'm thinking me, I'm thinking me.
Can't see it down.
I'm thinking me.
can't see a damn thing fake. What? You can't see a damn thing fake. I needed some with some bop in. Let's go. She turn off the take it out with slang it.
I was muted the whole time. I got too many emotes. I'm still buying them. I'm about to get copyright for this shit. Rick and Morty.
Slow down, baby.
Yeah, I feel like this.
All I do is win. Do it left. From a
Okay, we're good. Look at these raps. Shotgun or champion. I saw Peter Bot using the ice one. We're going with ice. Rock this thing. So Peter Bot using. Sorry if you hear my fucking laundry machine in the background. That shit is so fucking bad in here.
Wanna see me do my dance in these $1,000 pants. Don't disrespect me and my mans. Bam, whole lot of chops on you.
Don't disrespect me and my man. Bam, whole lot of chops for you. That is my emote. Disrespect me and my man. Disrespect me and my man.
Wanna see me do my dance in these $1,000 pants. Don't disrespect me and my mans. Whole lot of chops on you. Scram, we just putting dollars on your head. Gave his mama to the feds. Little brother, big brother, side I got the dress. DZ, DT, side I keep the bands. Wanna see me do my dance in these $1,000 pants. Don't disrespect me and my man.
I like the way you kiss me. I can tell you miss me. I can tell it this. I like the way you kiss me. I can tell you miss me. I can tell it this. I like the way you kiss me. I can tell you miss me. I can tell it.
Oh shit, Travis Dad Visor. Fuck you. Or Troubled Dad Visor. Yo, bro. Fuck you. Whack ass motherfucker. Get a life, bro. You know what's on this edit? Even though I didn't invent it, nobody talks about it. So you know what? We're calling this shit the posted edit. Fuck you talking about? Yeah, that's officially a posted edit. We got Peterbot edit, and now we got posted edit. Oh my. Oh yeah, this is the new move. Check it. Oh yeah. Hold up. Oh my, I'm going into season 2 with tag. Side jump, ooh. Side jump, ooh. Double jump, ooh. Wait. Oh my! Wait, I'm actually getting tech with it. I'm not targeting it already. How do you do that? I need to get better at that. So you still gotta be connectable. Okay. That'd be great. Balance it. You gotta look at this line right there. Oh, this one's hard. But once you get it, it's not that. Don't place that part. You gotta edit the closest part. Oh, okay. Like I'm getting it. It's like this. Ding, ding, ding. Oh. Ding, 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 ding. Fuck. Gotta go up and walk left. It's so bad. Been doing this for how long? Up and walk to the left. Up, walk to the left. Yo, my tech going into season 2 is gonna be crazy. Are you fucking kidding me right now? No. You can do it. Go with this. That sends you up. Bing, bing. Wait. Go this fast. Especially because you can't bring yourself. Yeah. I'm gonna do this area. I can do. I'm gonna do this. I can like do that. Boom, boom. Full boss. Ding, 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 ding. Wait, no, you can just full bar. From the side, who fucking does it like me? That's crazy. You can full box from the side, man. Why do I hit cone right there? You have a bad habit. My hand just naturally hit the cone after that. Jump and cone are the same finger. I hit the cone right after, naturally. Jump. Normally I hit a cone right here to edit. Instead I'm jumping. Do I even need to jump? Get ready for that build. Before you run out after the sprint. It's not a jump. This is the 90 that slumped me, by the way. It's like this, but you sprint and you sprint. And it's actually crap. The fastest way. So, I discovered the jumping technique. And by I discovered, I mean, I found a video. That's all I do anyway. Just discovering something, sharing it with you. I gotta add sprinting in. That's the first I started it. Used to the and I don't know. place a ramp over my head naturally. I need to stop doing that. I need to start placing a ramp like here. I need to touch grass. Doesn't matter that I have the habit of placing my phone right there. Ledge jump. Damn, I'm actually getting this game moving. Ledged up. Okay, so look. This is nice. But this is even better. You can ledge jump. Instantly shotgun shots. The way you do a ledge jump, you just jump off the ledge with a sprint. This is considered a ledge right here. So if you sprint, you can just do that and jump higher. But also, you can shoot instantly. So when I'm done properly, like that. That is fucking guru. And technically you can do it like this. Too. What the heck? Oh, I'm sorry. Because normally cones. But yeah, those ledge jumps allow you to do shit like that. That is straight guru jumps. Like, I have hops now. Like, yo, post it as hops now. No. We got the posted phone. Oh. fuck that one up, bro. I literally have to clear it. Like the hardest thing in the game. I don't know why. Technically, that was correct. Wasn't. What up, G?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your review of Drake album?
What'd you say?
What's your week in review of Sexy Songs?
Oh, like
Sick of it?
my second listen type shit?
Well, like, I've listened to it like 5 times probably now.
Yeah, but like, cause you already asked me what my opinion was. But like,
Yeah, week in review though.
Okay, I've never heard of that, but
Like
shit. I think a lot of the songs hold up. A lot of them are like mid now.
Yeah.
I'd say the best song on the album right now is When He's Gone, like the second to last song on the album. That shit is stuck in my head, I swear. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I think Give Me a Hug grew on me, actually. Like, I think everyone loved that shit from the beginning, but for me, like, I didn't really like it. I thought it was a weak, like, address song, you know what I'm saying? Because he's, like, kind of addressing the bullshit on Give Me a Hug. But the more I listen to it, the more I like the ending where he's like, give me a hug, I know what you do, like, your family does, I'm giving you love, or whatever the fuck he says, like, that shit is actually, like, real.
Hold up. Who's on a hamster wheel right now?
Oh, that's me, my bad, that's my dryer.
Oh, okay.
Fucking my dryer.
Sorry,
is
I was
so
just kidding.
loud. Nah, you're good, bro. It's terrible. I hate that shit. But I move in like a couple weeks now. Beneficial. I got confirmation. I'm gonna be working at the biggest dispensary in, I probably should say that. I'm sure, never mind. But I'm gonna be working at the biggest Walmart in Arizona. How about that? But
The biggest Walmart in Arizona?
Yeah, but you know it's. I'm not talking about no other Walmart. Regardless.
Amazon, gotcha.
Exactly. Type shit. Packs instead of packages. But Slump will tell you, like, I've straight like fucking picked up strippers before and like made them fall in love with me. Like Slump was right there next to me when I fucking picked up a sexy ass stripper and that bitch fell in love with me real quick. And so like the idea of give me a hug, like that shit grew on me.
I guess she's alright.
What'd you say?
She was pretty alright. She's good.
But she did fall in love with him?
Yeah, she's all over him. Okay.
And
So she wasn't as hot as he says, but she did fall in love with him.
Tight shit.
nah, she was hot as
Fine,
fuck.
okay.
Blonde
She
hair,
was.
blue eyes,
Oh,
fucking
yeah, I
100
don't like.
pounds. Fuck you talking about?
She was tall. Well, that's your shit.
I like tall girls.
I was taller than her. And anyway, she was a stripper and she had stilettos, and I was still taller than her. But yeah. So that girl straight fell in love with me, and so like, "Give Me a Hug" is like a good song for me because it just reminds me of like, "Come here, give me a hug." Like, I don't give a fuck what you do. Like, I'm not falling in love or whatever the fuck. Like, type shit. Shit is vibes. So so "Give Me a Hug" grew on me in that regard, but I still think it's kind of a weak, like, address song. But I want the new album. Like, this is just like filler until like the next Drake album, because you probably don't know this because you're not on social media like that, but he said like the next, like, he's dropping this album. He said this before he dropped the album. He's like, "I'm dropping this album, and then we have to have a one-on-one chat, and that's what my next album is about to be." So he's about to have a one-on-one chat with his fans, is what he said. So you already know that shit's gonna be straight bars. Like, this shit is like music to fuck to, music to play. Like I said, when you're driving home after you just like chill with a girl. Especially the second to last song. I'm telling you, that's the best song. When He's Gone, like, that shit is like an anthem. Maybe not an anthem. That shit is like probably the best song of 2025. And then Timmy's Delay, fire. CN Tower, still fire.
Superman versus Aquaman.
Superman and Spider-Man, or whatever the fuck that shit is called. That shit grew on me a little bit. I liked it from the beginning, but that's a good song.
And the song before it is actually not bad either.
Yeah, the Mothballs is ass. That's a skip for me. I think he could have left that one off. But yeah, Deeper by Party Next Door. Party Next Door actually carried on the album. Like, I'd say Party Next Door kept up with Drake, and that's the first time that's happened on a like collab. Because we got 3 collabs, right? We got Future, we got 21, and we got the Party Next Door. And honestly, like, Future, he set a vibe for sure, but I think Drake killed him on that shit, no debate. And
I might just want it for the seats for some pussy play.
And then 21 Savage literally has no good verses on his entire album. Like, that shit is all Drake. Like, literally, like, at least Future like gave us some fucking songs. Like, 21 Savage literally got fucking the Drake fucking stimulus package, like. And then Party Next Door, a dude from Toronto, by the way, that actually deserves, like, you know, some love by Drake, finally gets a fucking collab album that they've been talking about for years. And honestly, the only thing I can say about this album that it's missing is Tory Lanez. Like, if Tory Lanez wasn't in jail, that would be the ultimate Toronto album, because Tory Lanez damn near belongs on the album. I don't know if you know who Tory Lanez is, but his music, like, is straight, like, some sexy songs for you. Like, I feel like there's so much inspiration, that's what I'm looking for, from Tory Lanez. I don't know. It shit reminds me of, like, his Chicks tapes. But that would make it the ultimate Toronto album. But yeah, Deeper is just Party Next Door, and that song is fire. And then When He's Gone, the shit that's stuck in my head is Party Next Door. It's not great. And then there's that emo joint. I can't remember what it's called, but Die Lit or something like that. Not Die Lit, but it's like Die Young or something.
Yeah, the one, his pop song, Die
All my
Trying.
friends are dead, and I wish they made it to the end, or whatever. Like, that shit reminds me of Jordan. I was damn near crying the first time I heard that shit. Like, I was listening to the shit on stream, and like, I was making food when that song came on, and I damn near started to tear up because of Jordan. I was like, fuck, man, like, yeah. But
fire.
So I fuck with that song because it actually like made me feel something. And I don't cry, and it's ironic because, or not ironic, but it's appropriate because the song literally says I haven't cried in 10 years, like all my tears have run dry or some shit. And that's true, like I don't cry about shit anymore. But yeah. So album I'd say is like A tier. Especially like I feel like it's
Yeah.
gonna age really well too. Like
Yeah.
like 21 Savage album is already like here and gone, you know, but that shit was here and gone really quick.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
For real. I mean, there are good songs on that I can like bump. Like, I even like the 21 Can You Do Something For Me song because the second part, like in the middle, like where the beat switches, he says some shit like, "I'm giving you dick, ho," like I'm just work or like no, he's like, "I'm too busy to give you dick because I'm working" or some shit. And that's real as fuck. Cause I mean, I don't gotta explain that one or else I'll be labeled a misogynist, but.
Yeah.
I can fucking definitely relate to that fucking line. So, what about you? What's your weekend review?
Yeah. Same.
Okay, yeah, same. Anything else you want to add to that? Besides 2 words.
Favorite song is what was my favorite song? Actually, yeah, you're right. That "Give Me a Hug" song is fire too. But yeah, I just like the vibes of the whole song. I like the instrumentation of everything, the different synths used in it and stuff
that
are fire.
reminds me, I wanted to talk to you about something, but continue. Oh, okay.
No, yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. What is?
So you were
What do you
talking
want?
about how like, well, there's 2 things. First, the symbolism from the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. Like I saw a video breaking it down. It's actually kind of fire. So you know how everyone's like, Drake killed X. Like, I don't know if you've seen those like theories, but I see them all the
Yeah,
fucking
I've
time.
heard the theories. Yeah.
I'm like a huge fan. And
I mean, that was sus. The fucking
XXX,
Scorpion intro.
behind the neck or whatever, below the neck. Why you gotta tweet it? Why you gotta keep
Scorpion in the
tweeting it?
intro was sus too, though.
What did you say?
The Scorpion intro was sus.
What did he say in the intro?
What did he say? I mean, the fact that he even mentioned it in the intro, I guess, but like.
And then there's a song where like y'all killed Excellent Zimmerman.
Some get caught with it.
Done.
Some get caught without it.
Oh yeah. RP my brothers that they caught without it. Fucking bass drops an octave. And then anyway, so we got the Kendrick Lamar show where he starts playing a song right after Samuel L. Jackson says, "Oh, that was too street, deduct the life," or whatever, and then he starts performing In an X, and he's talking about Drake, you know, because Kendrick is Drake's fucking #1 hater. He's performing In an X right after Samuel L. Jackson says, that's too hood, deduct 1 life. And then the backup dancers have the half hair like X had, but it's red and black instead of like blonde and black. But the like
X totally started that shit.
yeah, I mean it was to copy Corella DeVille, but yeah, you're right. He did start that shit. But
Besides,
he says some shit in Peekaboo. I can't remember what he says, but the verse he raps in the X is like talking about like X. I'm pretty sure like I don't know. There was a like a TikTok that I saw breaking it down. Not a TikTok, like an Instagram video. But anyway, the second thing I wanted to tell you, Tanner, was in the first song, CN Tower, they used the lollipop thing. Did you hear that?
What's that?
Like she licked me like a lollipop.
Oh, I didn't hear that. They use that? What?
Yeah, when it's Party Next Doors, like half, they use that.
I'm gonna mute myself. Hold on.
I'm surprised you didn't notice that.
Dude, that fucking song was so hard back in the day. I'll be playing Mario Karts with that shit. Ooh, let me tell you.
Fire. I just noticed that. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's any other Easter eggs that
I'm
I haven't
somewhat
noticed.
of a musician, even though I don't drop music.
Well, yeah, but they put a different chord, like, behind it to where it doesn't have the same.
No,
Doesn't.
it's the same fucking.
It. No, yeah, but like it's
And
a different. It sounds. It has.
Yeah,
It hits
way
different
way
notes because it's like.
It's not the same beat.
On
I didn't say that.
No, I know, but yeah, it's like.
It's better.
Is that
Not better.
the same? Is that the same? What do you call them? Notes? Are those the same notes though?
Yeah.
Like that's the actual same A.
I mean,
That's
I don't
hilarious.
know. I don't have perfect pitch. Like, I actually think I do have pretty good.
Like you got to play them back to back. Like is it the same notes? Like is it actually like whatever B flat? Like
Bruh, I'm telling
A
you
minor?
right now, if I knew, that's funny. If I knew all the like letters and shit, I'd probably have perfect pitch. Like I can just hear shit like that all the time. I honestly should learn that shit. Like Tanner doesn't even know what perfect pitch is. If he would have said something.
You've never seen Pitch
I
Perfect.
know what pitch
before?
perfect is.
So you guys seriously don't know what perfect pitch is?
Yeah, you can hear a pitch and know what it is, like a perfect palette.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to just hear. I mean, that's really hard to hear a note without another note to compare it to, and know what note that is.
That's why it's called perfect pitch. That's weird. I don't think I'd be able to do it like in conversation, like where
Like,
I'm
I can hear
that was
any-
just A A B B B C C A A B, but like
If you tell me a note and play it to me, and then you play me another note, I can tell you what that other note was compared to the first note you played. Did you see that GameCube? Isn't that fire?
It's cool, but I want like a legit GameCube that has an emulator inside. You know what I'm talking about? Not emulator. That has a Game Boy Advance connector. That's what it's called, like adapter. That's
Oh.
fire. That way I can stream like Game Boy Advance games.
Did you see my Ferrari wheel?
Yeah. That's
I'm gonna do a custom wheel with that.
nice.
So I'm gonna like 3D print like a clear bezel for the front of it. And put anime girls in it.
Like
Hmm?
Yeah, Tanner, I heard that shit the second time I listened to CN Tower. I'm surprised you didn't. You're a bigger Wayne
Oh,
fan
I did
than
not
am.
know that. That's funny because I'm literally waiting for when is Carter 5 coming? Carter 6 coming out?
June 6th.
When's Carter 3 coming out?
June 6th. I think it's like his son's birthday or some shit, or I don't know, some shit. Oh wait, no, I think that's actually Kanye's album. Never mind. Yeah, that's. I think Kanye's got
Coming out this year, but he said that before.
Yeah, I think Carter 6 might be July, but that's just like what it feels like to me. But definitely Kanye's album drops on like Saint's birthday or something like that. One of his birthdays. One of his
When?
kids' birthdays. Like June 6th or some shit like that.
Damn, no way. Right for my graduation. Like right after I graduate, that's my reward.
No, I be going through it with girls sometimes. This like this past like couple weeks, and like so this album's honestly perfect that dropped already. Like I feel like Drake always drops at the perfect time of my life where it's like
Wait,
not an
oh
anthem,
yeah, this album.
but it's like I'll always remember where I was when the album dropped, like what I was doing, like who I was.
That
talking
can ruin. That's such a shame how that can just ruin albums though.
to. No, like no,
Like if you're in a
not
bad
the
place
page.
during an album.
No, you just can't.
I hated that ruined Certified Lover Boy where I was at the
Nah,
time.
Like I went through one of my worst breakups with Certified Lover Boy, but that shit makes it the best. I was playing that shit when this girl rejected me, and like I remember playing like No Friends in the Industry, like all this shit in the gym, and then she finally gave me a chance. We started dating. I fell in love with the girl, and then zippity doo dah, it didn't fucking work out, and I was left with Certified Lover Boy, and then we got the song Better Off as Friends. That's the best Drake song ever. I get along better with your friends.
Yeah, you know how perfect pitch.
Yeah, can I not change notes? The friends in that song is so hard to hit without auto-tune. I get along. Nah, yeah, see, I can't do that shit. Drake and Ty have fucking auto-tune. And now I get along better with your friends. Yeah, no, I can't do it. Friends. Kind of. And I have
Well, you
headphones
have
on, so I can't even hear myself really.
fuses.
When you're in the booth, you can hear yourself. And on top of that, you get multiple attempts. You just gotta hit that shit one time.
Yo, we all getting racing wheels and gonna start playing
No, bro.
Assetto Corsa. Why do you have a Assetto Corsa, Slump?
Slump is muted or deafened. He can't hear you.
He can hear me.
No, he can't. He's deafened, which means he literally like is not able to, even if you want. And now I get along better with your friends. You do it then, Cam.
Oh, I know it now. That was pretty decent because I actually know what song you're talking about now.
And it's wrong, I know. But again, trust me, this ain't about revenge. But now I get along better with your friends. Yeah, no, that last note is really hard to hit.
I get along better with your friends.
Okay, that was good. You got good like what's it called? Bravado or something? Like something in your voice?
Vibrato.
No, that's not the word, but you're close.
Vibrato.
Vibrato, yeah. You got good vibrato.
I hate when people overdo it with the vibrato.
Yeah, like some Mariah Carey shit. But you can change notes really well. I just heard it in like that one breath. Or that one. I don't even know what you call it because I'm not a singer, but line, note.
And that song is fire. Holy shit. That chord, that change, that high note is really fire. You're right.
Because I'm a rapper, bro. Like I just know like.
And you know what song I really like too is that from Scary Hours or what is it called? For All the Dogs.
The second one, fuck your ex or whatever.
No.
I think one of the best Drake songs is off
That
Scary
song is
Hours,
too.
Diplomatic Immunity. Fuck 'em. All that peace and that unity.
I'm just
all that
talking.
weak shit are
I think it's just on the regular For All the Dogs albums, but the what would Pluto do?
What?
That song is fire.
I gotta end stream right now and listen to that because wait, I joined Slump short. How do I end?